Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of 20 Minutes. And yeah, in case you haven't noticed, I'm getting old. And in case you didn't realize that, every day there's a new reminder of how old I'm getting. And especially when I saw our next guest get named the head coach of his alma mater. Of course, I'm talking about Liam Kirwan, the brand new spanking head coach of Marian Central Catholic, who going back to 2012, 2013, I was kind of following him and covering him and the rest of his teammates at Marian Central Catholic. And now, Liam, look at you. You're sitting in the head man seat in charge of the program. First of all, congratulations on being named the head coach of your alma mater, which I'm sure that alone is phenomenal. And how does it feel just sitting in that chair and being in that office? It's got to be definitely a trip for you.
First off, thank you. Definitely appreciate that. The congratulations. It's something that, you kind of, I'd be lying if it wasn't a dream job to think about when you're growing up, coming through high school and then coming through college and then in my professional career. But it's one of those things where it's so surreal where the first few weeks where it was just like, holy cow, I'm back. Hallways are still the same for the most part. Lot of teachers that I had still here. But the number one thing that I saw that I thought was awesome is the student athletes that we have here. I mean, the guys we have on our team here at Marian is impressive. They're all bought in. They're just hungry to compete, work hard. And that was the number one thing that I took away. It was like they remind me of the teams that I grew up watching with Brian Balaga, Sean Swinar, Cody O'Neill, John Budmeyer. And then when my class started coming into Marian with Chris Strevler, Curtis Cerneman, Scotty Taylor, names like that, you looked up to. Was the same kind of mentality. So to see the kids have that same mentality was refreshing because you never know, even though I am an alum, you never know what you're getting back into when you're taking a head coaching position.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look at last season, I'm sure that one of the first things you did when you took over, they finished 4-5, but I mean, you had a couple of games there. That had a game against St. Pat's and a game against Providence. It could have went either way. That could have easily been 6-3 versus 5-4. So that had to be encouraging. And then you look at some of the kids that were coming back as well. And I know we'll get into Christian Bettencourt, but the well was not dry whatsoever. And again, it's Coach Fortin. I know that last time I saw it, is he still part of the staff?
Yes, he's actually my offensive line coach on my staff on the varsity this year. So it's been great having him around. It's one of those things where with having him around, it's, hey, where's this hiding? Where do you store it? Kind of thing, So it's nice to have, and the kids appreciate it, I think, as well too.
Well, and that alone has to make your transition that much smoother. I mean, let's face it, you there's a lot of different situations and job openings where you're going to take over and you have nothing to start with, and to retain him and keep him on your staff, was that a priority for you right away?
Yeah, that was one of my top priorities. Coach Fortin coached me when I was a freshman at Marian. He was around the youth program that kind of led into Marian a lot when I was coming up through the ranks. And I've known him pretty much my whole life. So I think he's great with kids. I think he's a good coach. And the guy's loyal and dedicated to Marian Central Catholic. And anytime you've got a guy like that, and he's got that relationship with kids where, helping me out with the other things that come with being a head coach as well, it was no brainer keeping him on staff.
So I got to imagine one of the first things you got after right away, besides, meeting the team and talking to them, is putting a staff together. How has that gone? I've got to imagine for being a relatively young guy, you've got a pretty good Rolodex. And I know I'm aging myself by Rolodex. You've got a pretty full smartphone loaded with names. And have you reached out to maybe some of those guys you played with or friends? And how's that staff coming along for you?
Yes, for sure. So that was my number one thing is when I was hired, I told them the number one thing is we need a full staff. I think doing an analysis of the previous seasons, I know Coach Fortin didn't always have a full staff. And that was something that I thought was very important. And that goes John's going to kill me for this, but that goes to Coach Holosek. Some of the things I learned from him. He hates it when I give him compliments. But that was my number one thing, is going out and finding a full staff of guys that can commit themselves to the expectations I have that I've learned through my times as a coach, past my times as a player. And I was fairly, wasn't easy, but I was fairly happy with how it went. Had a lot of interviews. I kind of started off with a list of about 25 guys and just, seeing if there's any interest there, and then kind of adding to it as I went along. And then some guys actually came out of the woodwork. A guy that I played college football with actually came out of the woodwork, 2 guys there. And who are living in the area. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And one of them is actually my receivers coach by the name of Brad Belko, played at Richmond Burton in high school and was living around in the area and was a stud receiver in college. So got him on staff. And then, talking to other alumni, guys I played with, and then guys have been somewhat around the program. For the most part, I think the carryovers from last staff we've got 2 or 3 guys, but for the most part, got 7 guys on the varsity staff, another 4 or 5 guys on the JV staff, which is about what I'm looking for. A couple, for the first year, I was really proud of that and putting that together. So very excited about the staff. A lot of young guys that are just getting into it, but also having guys like Darren who've coached 30-something years and guys who've coached 20 years, and bring back alumni. Actually, Darren was going to bring back an alum, and Sean Stokel, class of 05. When I met with Sean, I thought he did a really good job in his interview and made him the offensive coordinator. So between alumni, different ages and different levels of experience, I think we've got a great staff that can both relate to kids, but also have the experience and the knowledge necessary to be a good staff for our kids.
You take a look at what you have and what you've inherited. You get your staff somewhat in place, and then obviously the summer rolls around and you start getting your contact days. Was there anything in particular that you saw, whether it was off a film study or what you just saw out of the kids on the team in person, that you zeroed in on and said, okay, this is what we need to get after right away? What was that, or was there anything in particular that you wanted to attack right away?
So number one thing is for me is player development. And number one way for that is getting a proper strength and conditioning program in. And that, through the help of guys I've learned from at Loyola Academy, like Jeff Lindeman, Anthony Fassett. I've seen what a top level strength and conditioning program should look like, and really building it off of that. And, that was the number one thing, is I had a ton of buy-in on those kids. We made a schedule that makes it pretty much anybody can make it, whether they work or they don't work for a summer job. And that was the number one thing, to get in there and get total buy-in there. And I was really proud of how many guys showed up, followed it. We just finished up testing and seeing the improvements they made in their lifts, their running times, all that stuff. So pretty excited about that. And then the second thing is, again, I know John's going to text me after this, but something I learned from Coach Holosek is film study is the number one thing, is watching practice film every day, having that practice film graded every day so that kids, we go into practice the next day, they know what they have to fix. And I think at first it was a little bit of a culture shock for the kids, but, towards the end of the year, it's, if the film's not up and graded right away, I'm getting huddle messages from the kids being like, Coach, where's the film? Where's the grades? I'm like, okay, guys, hey, I'm getting there, we're getting there. So that's been really cool to see that they responded to it positively. And like I said, it's the number one thing is these kids are hungry to bring some success back to Marian Central Catholic.
Yep. Overall numbers, program wide, where are you? Do they need to get better? And are you already working the area, and obviously going to have to work the hallways in the fall as well? How are things shaping up numbers wise?
So we have about 28 guys on our varsity. That's with a couple sophomores coming up with us, most likely. Also, a kicker only, so really about 29. He's a soccer player, also kicks for us. and then about 30 on the JV, the Frosh Soft JV level. So all in all, not the worst thing for the first year. I do have goals in mind of, I don't know if the days of having 3 levels are ever for sure coming back at schools my size, but at least getting to the point where we have 20 to 25 freshmen coming in every year is my goal. And yeah, going out all around. The good thing about Marian is there's only one Catholic school in McHenry County.
Yep.
And we're an affordable school. And some people don't like that I go with this pitch all the time. But when you look at it in the northwest suburbs area, far northwest suburbs, there's no school with the history that Marian Central Catholic has. 4 state championships. Yep. Prairie Ridge is coming real close with 3 right now. So it's my job to make sure we get some distance there. But then you look at 2006, we've had 14 players play Division I football. Yep. Christian's about to be 15. I think, depending on how a couple players play this year, like our quarterback, Cale McThenia, those guys could be, and a couple guys on defense, those guys could potentially, go get a scholarship. So, hopefully having in 2 years going 15, 16, 17 guys since 2006 playing Division I football, and hopefully adding to that state title run. If you look at the history, there's no argument. We've got a great tradition here. And then on top of it is just getting Marian's name out there. I think over the past few years, school-wide, we've got to continue to grow our brand awareness, people knowing where we're at, going out to other towns that they go, oh, I didn't know. I thought only Woodstock people went to Marian, when that's not true. We've got kids from Wisconsin. We've got kids from Kane County, Lake County, McHenry County, Boone County. So there's a big stretch of zip codes areas. And I think it's important, that kids have that option and they know they have that option. And that's my job.
It's interesting you mentioned branding and getting the name out there, because one of the first things I noticed, and more than just the Marian football Twitter, some of the other Marian sites as well, it seems like there's been a big push to really kind of get your name out there more on social media. And I got to imagine that's going to be a part of your plan of attack as well.
Yes, for sure. So, again, some of the lessons I learned from other coaches, whether they're at Loyola, college coaches, other high schools, is social media is a great avenue. First of all, connecting with kids. Kids love social media. You put a video or an Instagram story up on Twitter or Instagram, they love it. They feel like we're showcasing them. Parents, that was the biggest surprise. Parents love it, because I'm sure when little Johnny comes to the table and they go, oh, how was lifting today? No one, because I was a high school boy, wants to go, oh, it was fine. So I'm sure mom and dad that's been a big response. They like seeing what exactly the kids are doing. And third, it's free publicity. It's free promotion. It's another task to do, but it's another way to put the Marian Central Catholic name out there, not just the football program, but as a school, and to be able to connect with alumni, prospective students, everything you may want, because I think that's another thing is I think we have a very proud alumni base, especially on the football side of things, and making sure that they feel loved and feel up to date is another really big thing to me, to make sure that we keep that. And, I saw that at Loyola. I saw it when I was here at Marian, and I want to make sure that tradition is enhanced.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You keep bringing up the name John, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'll get the phone call as well. You're not the only one. Talk about playing under Ed Brucker, a guy that a coach I had gotten to know for a long time, and tremendous guy, just about as kind of level of a personality as you'll find. Just, I never saw him reel up or reel down. Saw him get mad a few times, but I never saw him, really lose his cool at all. Just what kind of influence did he have on you? And what do you think as far as what you learned under him that you're going to take with you to carry into Marian Central?
So, number one, I was so lucky being a 3-year starter. I got really close with Coach Brucker by the time I graduated, and even sat on the bus with him at the front of the bus on the way to games sometimes. And really being able to pick his brain was, as a high schooler, was really impressive to me, because And now we've got Huddle and we've got all these reports and stuff. But back in the day, he would take a white piece of paper, put 6 boxes on it, and he would pad out and draw up every formation and every play. And he'd give that to us every Monday morning. We'd have film going into the next opponent. And I'd get that. And, as a sophomore, you're kind of like, the coaches say, read it, and I did absorb it. And then by the time like you learned how to read it, I was a senior. There's some plays that I remember, like kids can find my highlights somehow, just because they're on YouTube, Huddle, whatever. And they, Coach, how do you make that play? I go, no joke. Coach Brucker had it drawn up, and I saw the formation, and I knew the exact play coming. Like, I could have been the worst football player on the field. I just had to be in the right spot. Yep. And that attention to detail is something that's always stuck to me, even in college. Like, I made plays because I would look at these tendency reports and see it. And then going into my professional career as a coach, I, worked with John Holosek, and he's the same way, like even more detail oriented, I'd say. And with the use of Huddle and being able to learn it, that attention to detail was something that stuck with me there. And it's continued to grow as a player and a coach for me. And then just the way he can lead a group of guys. As you said, Coach Brucker, he's pretty even-keeled. He's not going to talk too much, not going to talk too little. I just talked to him on the phone. He was supposed to be a consultant, but, we'll see. Once the games start going, I'm sure he's going to want to start breaking down some film. But, he finds a way to lead with few words, and I think that's awesome and impressive.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then you mentioned John Holosek, where, after you get out of college and let's, before we get into Holosek, talk about your college career a little bit. I know you started at St. Cloud and then wound up at Loras. And, I was still following you on social media. You really enjoyed your time at Loras, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. So, St. Cloud was great. I loved it. Something that I find personal for me as a mission for my kids, now that I'm a head coach, is making sure they find a fit. For me, yep. I don't know if you remember my recruiting at all, Edgy, but I had these preferred walk-ons, had Division II, had high NAIA Division III, kind of had my pick of where I wanted to go and how much I wanted to pay. But something I told myself at the beginning of college is I want to be closer to home. And then as things happen, you see facilities, you meet coaches, and don't get me wrong, a lot of great coaches I met, different places opened up to me. And I liked St. Cloud, liked the coaches, liked the facilities, liked the football program. It was a top 25 Division II program. And, scholarship money is always an eye-opener as well. And as you get there, you realize, oh, wow, 7.5 hours feels like 7.5 hours. And, you don't think about it as, is your old man, is your dad going to be able to come watch you play or not? And as an 18-year-old, you don't think about that. But as you grow up, you realize it's like, oh, man, that was kind of cool. So I loved my time there. Still have some great friends up that I played with there. Still keep in contact with guys like Coach DP, who's up at Southwest Minnesota State now. But that made my way down to Loras. I thought I'd never go to Loras. They weren't very good at the time, but I had a high school teammate be like, talk to this guy. And it was Coach Helminiak. And I don't know if you've ever talked to Coach Helminiak, but he's a great salesman, sold me on Loras. Also helped that my long-term girlfriend was at Loras, who's now my wife. Yep. And he didn't stop selling me. I ended up loving it there, had a good career. Wish we won some more football games. Learned a lot there. And to be honest, that's the reason I ended up at Loyola Academy with that strong connection to the Catholic League. And, loved it there, and I learned a lot. So really loved Loras, loved Coach Helminiak, loved the guys I had, and it really set me up to be where I'm at now. I really don't think I'd be in this chair without Loras College.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Catholic League connection to Loras, and the same with Dubuque and some of the. It's pretty amazing how many decades it goes back to Catholic League, the Chicago Catholic League tied into those schools. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah.
As far as we'll talk a little bit about John Holosek and your tenure under him as an assistant coach. Again, you've mentioned quite a few areas that that you're certainly going to borrow and take this and take that from them. I mean, was that almost in some ways comparable to like being an assistant coach at a college program, meaning so many kids and so many numbers and such a high talent level for that age group? I mean, it had to feel, first of all, I'm sure it wasn't easy getting a job in that staff, because that staff has been there for a while. They're a very tight knit group, and able to get in there and work with those guys. They almost feel like being a real high level program. Because to me, every time I'm there, I'm amazed at just the numbers and the way those guys run that program.
Totally. Yes. Yeah, it feels like a college football program, the way they run it. And, the attention to detail on the film study. And that's where I think Coach Holosek does a great job, is the way they run their program. It's a lot like a college program. You have meetings where you're watching practice film every day, and it's broken up into position groups: linebackers, D-line, O-line, O-line, receivers, quarterbacks. So I think that number one right there is what sets Coach Holosek apart, is the way he prepares and the way he structures his program. And then, like you said, that staff has been together for a long time. Coming in as an outsider, you've always heard great things. And then I got to see it up close and personal. And it's impressive. The work they do, the amount of hours they put in, there's no stone left unturned with that staff. And that's something that and I was there 5 years, and every year, you think you learn a good amount, and then, wow, you learn a lot the next year too. And, it's incredible. And the amount of kids, learning how to structure practices. I mean, I don't have that luxury that Coach Holosek has, but I think he's going to have like 120 or 130 on his varsity roster this year, with, another 100 freshmen, I'm sure, coming in. So it really is impressive, just the structure, the preparation, and, making sure they've got, students there to help them with filming, a staff that's all bought in. It's really remarkable. And, I dream of having a staff like that, because they're incredible.
Yeah. One other thing, couple of things I want to hit before I let you go. And again, I appreciate your time. I know you're real busy right now. You got to be excited to learn that your new athletic director is Cody O'Neill, and a football guy is the AD. I mean, I don't think you could ask for much more than that.
Yeah. So it's actually funny. I grew up kind of looking up to Cody. I remember being an 8th grader, and he was a senior, and, he'd take me through drills on the sled over at St. Mary's, where I played my youth football or whatever. And then I'll never forget freshman year, we had these lineman camps with Coach Spoden. It was O-line, D-line only. And it got rained out. And then I went to go to my brother's practice, because I was just swinging by or whatever. And Cody's brother was on the team too. And he goes, "Why are you here? Why don't you have practice?" I was like, "Oh, it got canceled because of rain." He goes, "Well, it's not raining anymore." So he had me put on all my pads, and I had to go hit the sled with him too. He's like, "No excuses." So, he really took me under his wing, even though we never spent 1 hour together, 1 minute together at high school together. And I think that's what makes Marian special, is there's a bunch of guys like that. You look at like Greg Whalen. We did spend time together in high school. He's up at Western Michigan now. The list goes on. Brian Balaga coming back, Sean Swinar, Brett Leahy, all these guys coming back. So to have that as an athletic director that I've known my whole life, and I can pick his brain as a college football coach, for a long time, and have him, who also knows what the expectations were, back with Coach Brucker, and, even going back to Coach Penza's years. I think that's a home run to have him back in the building and have a special part of this.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And you mentioned I've been blessed to know Cody for a long time, covered him in his recruiting, and and he was one of the first kids I remember, for as long as I've been doing this, that wound up, I believe, at South Dakota.
Yeah.
And that was way before they did all kinds of, spent a ton of money and did renovations and wound up in the Missouri Valley. I mean, that was way before then. So he was like one of the early pioneers to leave this area to go out to the Dakotas to play football. So just a kid that I'll never forget. I mean, just a unique, kind of like you. I could never forget you, because you were that kid. You were that kid. I tell you what, Liam, I saw, and I would have pointed at you and said, that kid's going to be a coach someday. That was you in high school. So the fact that I think you're exactly at where you should be at. Seriously. So
I appreciate that.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. So the other thing I want to cover, and this is more of an AD question, but just your thoughts on it. I know when you were playing, you were in like the Suburban Christian Conference, and then Marian Central's been in the Chicago Catholic CCLE SCC, and now they're out of that. Now this year you're playing as an independent, which you look at your schedule for this year. Let's face it, it is a weird looking schedule, but welcome to the world of the independents. That's just what it is. Is the mindset in that community, in that district, just the fact that because of your location, because of the fact that you don't have a lot of similar size schools around you, that you're going to always have to pretty much go with the flow? And then what would your preference be if you can wind up going anywhere or playing anywhere? Does it even matter?
Yeah. So, definitely going to be an interesting schedule this year. We've got 6-hour trip, 3-hour trip, 6-hour trip to Mount Carmel, Illinois, which everybody keeps confusing with the Caravan.
Yeah.
Like, nope, this is the Golden Aces. Then we're heading up to Appleton as well. So you're like, we're covering everything and going all the way to 79th and Western, right? Is Burrito. Yeah. So we're covering everything and then making our way up.
So Liam, here's the most interesting 2 weeks in the history of IHSA football. You're going to play at Lena Winslow, and then the following week go to St. Rita.
Yep.
That is very, very interesting.
And then down to Mount Carmel, Illinois, the week after that. That'll be we're racking up the miles, that's for sure.
But it is what it is, and you have to play everyone in front of you.
Yeah.
You obviously you still have those bigger names on the schedule. I know that in some years you're fine with it, but other years the numbers might not be there, and especially early in the year, if you knock on wood, you can avoid some of the injuries and stuff. But I guess so. What I'm trying to find out and search and try to get a feel for is there a perfect scenario for Marian Central Catholic from a conference standpoint, or is it always going to be a struggle?
It'll always be a struggle, I think, especially with being the only private school out here. Yeah. I mentioned it as a benefit before, but now it's as a con, right? A negative is, I think travel-wise, the Fox Valley Conference would be great for us, right? I think it's a great conference. And Friday nights in the Fox Valley are hard to beat because you got Crystal Lake, South Central, right? They're right down the road from each other. You have great crowds every Friday night and really a big community gathering. And you look across the Fox Valley for that. That's awesome, right? Now, there's been different things that have happened over the years where I don't know if that'll ever be an option. Travel-wise, travel-wise and competition-wise, that would be the best, right? Yeah. I, as a guy who, the past 5 years being in the Catholic League, I'd love to be able to eventually get to that point because I think the Catholic League is the most storied, fun league to play in, whether you're a freshman coach to a varsity coach, because there's just so much passion for the sport and such great competition. Don't know if we're there yet,
right?
But I think the perfect world would be, and I don't know if it'll ever come back, is, the SCC that I played in, Martini, Driscoll, all that, that all started, I did some research. It was like, there was the East Suburban and the West Suburban was what it was originally called, right?
Yes.
And, it'd be awesome to have the Carmel Inviters, right? They're out west, northwest by us. And then you have the Montinis, the ICs, all those teams, St. Francis's, it limit travel a little bit. I'd love to see that eventually. Does that ever happen? I don't know. With the giant ESCC, CCL, I don't know. It'll be hard to do. I think the only way we'd really get done is if there was a giant, mega conference. And I'm saying mega conference because that's the hot topic in college football.
Right. You're right, though. It is.
And then breaking it up off of that, being off of, school size and location, kind of like, going in that way. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but, next year we'll be in that basically a lot of those metro teams, so like Wheaton Academy, who we open up with, and St. Ed's, which I think will be good for us as a whole athletic department. But like I said, perfect world would probably be is almost bringing back that SEC with a little modifications and bringing the Carmel Catholics and the St. Viters there to limit travel a little bit.
Well, and even the East Suburban before it merged with the CCL, I could tell you, having dealings with a lot of the ADs and a lot of the head coaches, especially from the football side, the head coaches, they all got along. I mean, there was a lot of cooperation, and I'm down here in the Joliet area, and you talk to Joliet Catholic people, and they'll tell you, no one wanted to make that Friday night drive up to Marian Central Catholic, and they sure as hell didn't want to come back here either to play. But that was just, it was given. It was just part of the deal that, hey, you know what? You're going to have to deal with this. Yeah, basketball on a Tuesday night, it's horrible. You got to go up there, deal with it, and come back, and your kids aren't getting back till late. But everyone managed, and it seemed like everyone got along. So I'm hoping you guys can find that kind of nirvana again and be able to get at least in with a group where everyone cooperates and gets along and it works out, other than the travel. I think the travel is always going to be an issue unless you wind up in a Fox Valley or somewhere. But other than that, that's all right. I've been rambling on too long about it anyway.
No worries.
Liam Kirwan, head coach, Marian Central Catholic, my friend, best of luck. Go get them. And again, man, just going to be rooting for you this year and go have some fun and win some football games and enjoy your unique road trip this fall.
Will do. Thank you so much for everything you do, Edgy, for the sport. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to hearing from you during the season.
All right. That is Liam Kirwan again joining us, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back soon with another 20.